This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody. We are about to begin our commission meeting.
Morning.
Morning. Do we have any volunteers on the prayer? Yes, I'll do it. Let's all bow our heads.
Let's stand and bow our heads.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together again this morning. A morning that is, especially in my case, is real rejoiceful. We thank you for all the pressure that it offered me. I can sleep well, Lord. We thank you, Lord, for this. Continue to be with me and all the citizens in this county. We pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's all stand and join us for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We have before you a proposed agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Anything? Okay. I move, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the agenda for this morning.
That's second.
Okay, it has been motioned and second. All in favor by the show of hands. That motion carries. We have old minutes that were emailed to all of us or mail. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move we adopt the minutes as recorded.
Second.
It has been motioned and second. Do we have any discussion on the recorded minutes? If not, all in favor by the show of hands. That motion carries. Mr. Steve is on you then.
Okay. Let me get to here. Okay, we'll have the financial report for the month of November at the next meeting. Item number 3, DOTs have announced that our 2025 LMIG funding is to be $733,000. A 10% local match is required, and the application is due to DOT by February the 1st. I had hoped to have a recommendation from the engineer today, but they are working on it, and they said they would have us a recommendation for projects for y'all to consider at the next meeting. So, item number 4, in a previous meeting, we approved the proposed draft of the new agreement with Waste Management. Their legal counsel has signed off on it, and they have actually signed off on it. So actually, I just need to get the chairman's signature. No action is required because the board's already adopted it. That's when we get that in place. Sorry about there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. And just remind everybody that Waste Management is still going to be picking up the garbage. The only thing that's changing is the county will not be sending out the bills starting in January. We still will be billing, never send out a bill for December. We send our bills out the end of the month, so they'll get that bill, and then Waste Management will start doing the billing starting in January. So, and we've sent a letter out to everybody explaining our situation. Waste Management is, as I understand, should be sending out a notice middle of this month, letting folks know what their process for the billing will be. These minutes up so they don't get lost. Thank you. I'll make them right there. Okay, next item on the agenda. Just a upcoming item. There's somebody's applied for a conditional use to put a recreational vehicle down on Drayton Loop. The Planning Commission has a public hearing scheduled next Monday at 5:30 to hear that request. Planning Commission will hear the request, then they'll make a recommendation to the county commissioners who will hold a public hearing and then decide whether to approve or deny that zoning request at our next county commissioners meeting. Item number 6, there's still a vacancy on the DFAX board that needs to be filled. Are there any nominations today? Yeah. Hearing none, we'll leave that on the agenda. On the Board of Health, there's 2 positions. Let me try to make this a little larger to make it easier to see. Ooh, not that large. Okay. The board, position 1 is per state regulations. It should be the chief executive officer of the county governing authority or his designee. So Chairman Barron serves on that. That term expires December 31st, but what we normally do, wait on that. We wait till after January 1 to see who's going to be chairman next year. And then they'll be the one that serves as the Board of Health representative for next year. So we don't need to do anything on take any action on that today, but position number 2, Ms. Rebecca Tidings has been serving in that position and her term expires December 31st also. I contacted the public nurse, Cindy Mercer, and got her to first ask her, would she like for Ms. Tidings to continue to serve? And she said she would love Ms. Tidings to continue to serve. Contacted Ms. Tidings, and she is willing to serve another term. So if the board would like, it would be in order for a motion to appoint Ms. Tidings to another term.
I don't know. I'll offer the motion. Second. She lives in Vienna.
She lives here in Vienna.
Okay, it has been motioned and second. Do we have any discussion on it? If not, all in favor by the show of hands, that motion carries.
Okay. Then on the Industrial Development Authority, Mr. Bob Jeter's term expires. I contacted Scotty Mashburn. He said he would like for Bob to continue to serve. He contacted Bob, and Bob is willing to serve if appointed. They serve 6-year terms. So
You need a motion for that one?
yes, sir.
Okay, so move, Mr. Chairman.
That's it.
There's been motion and second. Do we have any discussion on it before we vote on it? If not, all in favor by the show of hands, that motion carries.
Okay. And on the library board, we actually had 3 terms that actually expired back in June 30th, but they slipped by us. So they continue to serve until the new people or somebody's reappointed. Angela Brannon, Gwendolyn Dexter, and Elaine Johnson. I contacted the librarian. She would like she recommended these 3 ladies be asked to serve again. She contacted them. They're all willing to serve another 3-year term. So
Make a motion that we reappoint all 3. Second the motion.
It has been motion and second. Any discussion on it?
I got one.
Okay.
Wasn't Corey on that board? You know? He on another
He's
board.
on the
Well, when did I be on the board?
Flint. He's on the, there's a Flint
There's another
regional.
one. Oh, okay.
Flint regional that,
Lake Blacksher. Region.
Oh, okay.
Lake Blacksher
Okay.
regional, yeah.
The big board.
The big board. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
All right.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All in favor by the show of hands, that motion carries.
On the Plan Commission, Layfield Buckholt's term's expiring, Kelly Nolar's term's expiring, and Tony Turner's term is expiring. They serve 3-year terms. They all 3 have indicated they would be willing to serve again if reappointed by the county commissioners.
I'll make that a motion for all 3.
I second.
Okay, it has been motion and second. Any discussion on it? If not, all in favor by the show of hand, that motion carries.
And on the Recreation Board, there are 4 terms expiring. John Averill Jr., Shantanika Felton, Crystal Jordan, and Steve Morgan. And Joseph Willis has contacted all 4 of them, and they're all 4 willing to serve.
I would like to make one change on, not the ones that are up, but my seat. I've got somebody that wants to take my seat, and I'd like to step off and let them get in there and serve.
So what, if you don't mind, well, let's
Handle that
reappoint these 4, and then we'll.
I'll make that a motion that those 4 be reappointed.
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it has been motion and second. Do we have any discussion on those 4? If not, all in favor by the show of hands, that motion carries.
All right, so would be, the next thing, Mr. Mixon needs to resign from, how we done, we never had one to resign or step down, so how should we handle that?
Well, Sheriff, can you take him into custody until the term expires? That was one way to do it. That's the easiest way.
We're not gonna give him that much joy.
That would not require a letter because incarceration would be immediate removal. I'm just thinking through the options for you.
Okay, what's plan B?
Plan B, have him send an email to you saying, I don't want to do it anymore.
And then we'll appoint, if you'll do that, and then we'll appoint Michael at next meeting. I think probably the best way to handle that. Okay. Okay, item number 12. On the Middle Flint Regional E911 Authority, Kenny Calhoun is our representative, Dooley County's representative on the authority. His term's expiring December 31st. He's retiring as our EMA director December 31st also. Don Wilford's going to assume the duties of EMA director. And so Kenny and Don and I have discussed, let's hold off on appointing anybody. Kenny will continue to serve on the authority till we replace him. And probably I plan to get y'all to appoint Don maybe January or February. Don's going to start going to some of the authority meetings to get familiar with everything before he becomes a board member. So we're just going to put that on hold for right now. Number 13, the Vinyl Women's Club will conduct a ribbon cutting for the Dooley County Veterans Museum at 3:30 on Saturday. That's this coming Saturday.
They want you to know that's Pearl Harbor Day is the reason they're doing it. But Beth and Diane and Becky and Janet will not be there because they're going on their annual girls trip. But they want y'all to support it.
Okay. All right. Item number 13.
Vote.
I'm sorry, number 14. Thank you. I need to request authority to open up a new checking account for the SPLOST 2019-2024, even though that SPLOST is speaking to expire then this month. But when the voters approved that SPLOST, we had to estimate the revenues that would come in for that 6-year period. We estimated it to bring in $8.7 million. And we had to list the projects and assign a dollar value to each one of the projects. The county had to, and the cities had to do the same thing for their city projects. The SPLOST will stay in effect. The SPLOST is going to stay in effect through the merchants will continue to collect it through the end of this month. However, it generated, with what we received the end of November, it reached the $8.7 million revenue estimate. So that means anything over the $8.7 million is considered excess revenues. The excess revenues cannot be used for any of the projects that were listed on the ballot. the excess revenues must be used, go directly to the county to be applied to existing debt. So with the money we got in November, there was $2,040.78 of excess revenues. So need a new checking account for that. And then the money we get in December would be 100% excess revenues. And the money we get in the end of December is for the taxes the merchants collected in November. The merchants collected it in November, were collected in November. They turn it into the state the 1st of December, and the state turns it over to us the end of December. So we'll get a remittance from the state the end of December, end of this month, which will be for the taxes collected in November. We'll get a remittance from the state the end of January, which will be for the remittance that the merchants collected in December. So all that will go in this excess revenue checking account. Then, starting in January, the merchants start collecting under the new SPLOST. We'll get that money the end of February, and we'll have to open up all new checking accounts for the new SPLOST. But the thing right now, I just need authority to open up a new checking account for the excess revenues for the 2019-2024 SPLOST.
I make the motion.
Second.
Okay, it has been motion and second. Do we have any other discussion on it before we vote it in?
Yeah, opening up checking accounts a pleasant problem.
Exactly.
We don't have any issues with that. And excess is certainly something we were not planning on. And this is great that it transcended like it did and exceeded our expectations. We don't have a whole lot of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
speaking of pleasant problems and banking problems, the tax just came to mind when you said that. I spoke with the tax commissioner yesterday, and the tax bills have been mailed, and people are starting to come in to pay. And if anybody wants to go ahead and cut that off because of the mail delay and give them before the end of the year, people are starting to come in and they can print out a balance. My Aunt Jean Marie, as sweet as she is, worried about Charlie when he got out of the hospital. She said, after I visited, she said, Bert, what's going on with the taxes? And I explained it to her. And Charlie said, oh, the school system needs that money because he was and he said, and y'all do too. He says, we're going to get our check right in. And I'm not giving you an infomercial. I'm just telling you that's the way a lot of people think.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's out there. I want to put that out there. Thanks.
All in favor by the show of hand? That motion carried. But when is the deadline for that? I know it's in January
31.
Okay.
Okay. Then we had an appointment on 9/15. I put Amy's name down, but she said there was going to be a group of folks. There were some folks who wants to be the first spokesperson.
These two, those two, and those two for sure.
Okay, we're
These
gonna.
two in the corner over here are involved also.
Okay. All right. We'll come up, state your name, and.
Since none of y'all don't know me. Well,
Careful there.
Steve,
my name is Marty Four.
Yeah, we're going.
I live at 184 Campers Haven Road. And I'm here today to talk to you all about something that's going on in our neighborhood. I'm not expecting y'all to solve the problem. More or less, I want to use y'all as a sounding board to sound off what we're dealing with in our area. I've lived in that area for 35 years. And got neighbors on both sides of me. We've gotten along and had a problem with, not one bit. But we have a situation going on in our neighborhood. And I understand the law is the law and people have rights to do certain things. But sometimes there's people that take things a little further than what the law says you're allowed to do. And the other members of our community, they were taught Because anything, if I say what they told me, that's more or less hearsay. So what they're dealing with from their part of it, my property line does kind of join up to some of theirs. And back when my father-in-law was alive, Buddy Akins, this guy, Dad, he kept thinking that my father-in-law was trying to steal some of his land, which we went strictly by the plat, and it was surveyed and everything. Well, now this gentleman, he's passed away, and his son and wife and son has moved in there. And I've been down there in my easement that goes in to my back 5.25 acres back there. I had given permission to one of my other neighbors to let their little boys, 7-year-old and one was 14, they could use the easement to come up through there to go back to my back 5 acres to keep them out the highway so they could ride their 4-wheeler somewhere. And I gave them permission to do that. They cut them trails in there and all. Well, this one gentleman goes and puts a power pole right in the middle of my easement where I don't have access to get in there. And I told him he couldn't do that. And he said it was his land. And I told him, no, that's not your land. And he said that, well, my granddad said it was. I said, well, your granddad's wrong. By the plat, that's my property. You cannot put no pole in there. He was going to do that to try to hinder them from riding the 4-wheelers back there. It seems like anybody that touches them, they have a problem with, and he thinks he's the national security of their property. They even think the county right of way is their property. So, and we just had a situation one day earlier this week, Tuesday, a guy that's doing contract work on my house. He pulls off the side of the road there, and this gentleman comes out there and approaches him. I'm not going to go any further detail than that because I don't know exactly what all transpired in the conversation between the officer and the man that this happened to. That would be for them to say if he's so. All I'm trying to say is we've never had this kind of situation in all the years I've lived there. I've worked for state government most of my life. I taught kids in baseball and rec football. And Eugene can testify to that. He knows. I've been there. I work with kids. I want our communities to be safe. You see on TV, this stuff happens in other areas. Oh, but it'll never happen here. But it can. And all I'm looking for is some guidance or what our avenues are. Because I don't want that situation. When that happens, it's too late then. And I don't want that situation to happen. And, and if it starts here, then it starts somewhere else. And I know law enforcement, they have their hands full. And I know they only have guidelines that they can go by. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Mr. Ford, could I ask a question?
Yes.
The property that you reside on,
Right.
who is it titled in?
To me.
To her.
Which is Amy?
Yes, it's Buddy's daughter.
Amy Ford?
Yeah.
I mean, Aikens School.
Okay, and the property that you're speaking of, that the stuff is kind of coming from, who is it titled in? Do we know?
The last time that we know of that it was in anyone's name, Steve, on our plats that we have, it is still listed to belong to Mr. Cecil Clemens.
And he's deceased?
And he has been deceased for a good many years.
Okay.
His son, Mike Clemens, was living on that property along with his mother when we moved out there in '89. Since then, both of those persons have passed away also.
Clemens.
So now the property is being,
That's the right of way.
I don't know if you call it owned by or not. His son, Shane Clemens, is the one who moved it over wide on there. And it's his son that is giving us the problem.
Now, that's my property, you've got highlighted there.
And then y'all's house.
See, it joins up right behind the folks who we're talking about is double wide. Then it kind of corners to Art and Genesis, comes over and then comes all the way out to the road.
And you see that easement?
Okay, could I ask a question? Is Shane Clements in the room?
No.
But he's the one we think is exercising the control.
He's supposed to be the one who inherited the property, Steve, from his father when his father died.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to get to who the actual parties and interests would be, because it's really an issue. It gets down to a civil issue, and you don't want it to become a criminal issue, and that's why you're here.
Right. There's no need for it to get to that.
No. I think that it just, without trying to give any legal advice, we need to know who we're dealing with that owns it, because there could be the plat that you have may not be up to date. There may have been a deed. We need to find out if anything's been done. Okay.
Right.
Because that gets to whether the person who's exercising the control that you're saying has any legal right to do it or not. Okay.
Right.
And whether or not they're doing it right or wrong is another question. Do you follow me?
Yes. Now, Mr. and Mrs. S just had the surveyors come out yesterday.
Okay, that's helpful.
They just came out yesterday and were there, and this gentleman we're talking about approached them, and when they found out that he had built stuff on their property, he told them he was not moving it. It's in his head.
Who were the surveyors?
Jason Fairclough.
Jason
Okay.
Fairclough.
What did they survey? Which parcel did they survey?
Right there, where you're at.
130?
All right, come back to the east. Come back a little bit to the green line. They surveyed that line right there.
So who owns 98?
That's the same people, but it's
Clemens.
I guess it gets down to what, we're limited what we can do as a board, or what this board can do. We're taking information as a citizen comment, but what is it that you want to just make us aware of
that's more or less what's going on. And like with Sheriff, I've known Greg a long time, and I understand him being the sheriff. I understand, you have laws and stuff, and you have to enforce the laws by the laws and everything. All we're wanting is keep him quit harassing these folks here. He's 98 years old. He can't even go out in his yard. That boy ain't down there cussing him and
Pointing a gun at him.
and stuff like that. And all we're here for is we want things to be peaceful in our neighborhood,
We live in fear.
and we don't want a situation to happen. If there's any way we can prevent it, that's what we want.
Our grandson can't even come to our home because our son won't let him because of this situation. These people carry guns. They point guns at these two people constantly. This boy pointed a gun at our contractor. He got down on his knee like a sniper and pointed a gun at our contractor. We should be able to have a contractor come to our home without fear of somebody pointing a gun at him. What are y'all going to do? What happened yesterday? Stand up and please tell us what happened. Help us. Somebody help us.
All right, so I've been dealing with a lot of these calls out there.
What's your name, sir?
Sir?
Your name, please?
Do everybody need to come by do they need to be addressed and they need to sort of come up and,
Address the chairman.
before we start doing things where we want to do it.
All right, so I'm Richard Eschenbach. I'm an investigator with the Sheriff's Office. I've been dealing with a lot of these calls out there. And like Mr. Ford was saying, what we think and what we can prove are two different things. We don't have any witnesses to anything. It's not illegal to have a gun on your property. It's not legal to shoot on your property in the county. There's no county ordinance saying you can't shoot on your property. And we wouldn't want that probably, right? We've got a lot of hunters and a lot of people who use their property for firearms. The incident yesterday, so Ms. Espy requested a deputy do what we call standby. while the surveyors were on the property based on the stuff that's going on. So I myself handled that. I went out there and sat on the property the entire time the surveyors were there to make sure there were no problems. While I was there doing that is when I was informed about the incident that happened with the y'all's contractor. So that's an open, active investigation. We just got that information yesterday. It's going to take us time to develop that investigation. We kind of have a protocol in which we go about things. We don't want to just start scooping folks up and taking them to jail if it's not justified or not anything that's going to stick, right? Because if we just arrest somebody and then, you know, I apply for a warrant through the judge, and the judge denies my warrant, we're going to send this kid back in to be around these people, and now he's fired up more so than ever. And that's what we're kind of dealing with. You know, in my heart, do I believe it's harassment and he's doing it to intimidate them? Sure. But I don't enforce what's in my heart. I got to enforce what the laws are. So it's just going to take some time to develop something that we can make stick and stand. As far as I'm concerned, you know, as far as I'm aware, yesterday was the first time, I guess it was Tuesday when it happened, was the first time he actually pointed the firearm at anybody. That changes things dramatically from shooting into the ground, which is dangerous but not illegal, to pointing a firearm at somebody, which 100% is illegal. So that's where we're going to move into now, develop that investigation, which is what we're working on now. That's where we're at.
How old is this kid?
He's 22 or 23 years old. He's
21.
21. Old enough to know better.
Yeah.
Old enough to know better.
In his right mind? I mean, outside of this, but he's not.
Under the influence of anything?
He does not appear to be under the influence of anything. No, he, I would think like he wouldn't meet any of the requirements, right? Like to make involuntary commitment or anything like that. He seems to be, I mean, not anybody I would want my kids hanging out with, but, you know, not suffering from any type of mental disability or anything.
We dealt with this family in a problem a year or so ago out there. And at the time, I didn't think they lived there full time. Are they there full, they lived
Yeah,
there?
they were there then, when we had the meeting about the campsite.
They lived there full time?
Yes.
Would you say that's about when it started up real bad, right after they got denied the campgrounds?
The guy Shane said that there was no hard feelings and all, but since then they put in hog pens down there and brought every other kind of farm animal in, free roaming, I would say. And you know how some people they make it say, well, we're not trying to do that, but you know, and I don't mind being a neighbor. I don't have no problem if your chickens come over here, they eat up bugs and stuff like that. That don't bother me. What bothers me is when two elderly folks can't go out in their yard without being harassed and being cussed. And like I said, I ain't going into none of that. What was said, they can tell you that if they wish. But I'm just saying the signs are there and I don't want them to come to fruition. You know what I'm saying? And like I say again, I know the sheriff's department, they have, like he said, and I understand, and he explained it perfectly right there about you don't want to tee them off and put them right back in the hen house. That ain't gonna work. So, but you got to start somewhere. You know, if you just put a Band-Aid on something, it ain't gonna get better. So, and trust me, I live there. That's my home. And I've lived next door to these folks the whole time they've been there, 20, 25 years plus, whatever. Never had a moment's problem out of them. Never crossed the road, never had a problem out of them, whatever. We helped each other. I even went down there and took dirt off of my land, and the other neighbor took his tractor and put in when they were first shooting down there and put out there where their berm is, put tires in there and put more dirt in there to try to say, okay, you know, be neighborly. We don't have a problem with you shooting. You know, that's your right. But, you know, but you can't go and harass people and try to intimidate them. Because, you know, sometimes you push somebody far enough, sometimes
they intimidate back. And that's what we're trying to keep from happening here. And
One other question. You say they're shooting on this lot on the corner right now?
I know you can't see it from there, but you can from right
They
here.
own that land there too? Who owns that?
Here, there's the old double wide his daddy used to live in, Mike. They got their berm right here. And they're shooting that way. There's a guy that lives right there in that trailer right there. There's a house there. There's a house over here. This house, he went and built a tall privacy panel fence because anytime like his kids would go out and go ride the four wheelers, that boy come out there and shoot.
Okay. Do we have anybody else in the group like to
Yes.
speak before we,
They do, and like I say, and far as the blunt of the harassment and everything, they hadn't harassed me. Like that day I went there and I talked to them calmly, told them, I said, you're just gonna have to move your poles, you can't put them in my easement. And then he said, you know, what he went in, I don't know where he's getting his information or what he believes. And which now I know his mama.
All right, let's do this. So, Mr. Ford has covered this pretty well, and he's asked Mr. Eschenbach to come up and give sort of an independent review of it. We've kind of heard from some people that stood up, you know, without coming up. That's okay. Is there anything that could be added to this that's very important that we haven't heard yet?
Thank y'all for your time.
that's what I was about to get around. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
I am Janice Espy. I live right next door to these people at 130 Campus Haven Road. And
How long have you lived there, ma'am?
since August the 10th of 1989, my lifetime has been there. Both my children are married and gone, one's dead and gone now. But like they were talking, Marty and Amy had that easement they gave to those two boys of the Maltese. So they had a nice, safe place for them to ride because they're both young. And all I have to do is hear that four-wheeler crank up. Give it 5 to 15 minutes, and this kid next door is in the easement with a rifle, and he's shooting across property lines down that easement toward Marty's property. I have seen myself, him, in the easement, and where, I can't see one of these maps very well, but where River Road runs down here along this end of his property, he will be up there in that easement right out from where his house is with a rifle. He'll drop down on his left knee and he fires a rifle down across River Road. I've seen him do that twice. And Lord knows we have a lot of traffic coming up down that road. My husband comes to Vienna for whatever purpose. That's the way he comes home, is River Road off of 27. That's dangerous for everybody. And if I hear those four-wheelers, I just stay in the house. I am so scared he's going to hit one of those kids. And that's the last thing I want to ever see happen. I've lost one. You don't get over it. And I don't want it to happen to anybody else. That's number one. A little over a year ago, we inherited 2 dogs. They weigh about 30 pounds apiece, and they wouldn't hurt nobody for nothing in the world. But they are Australian cattle dogs, and they do love to run, and they love to play. And they play rough with each other, not with other people. And if I have got almost, I would say it's pretty close to 1/4 of an acre of land right directly behind my house that is fenced in with chain link fence. So those dogs have their own place to play. They never get outside unless they slip out the front door. And if they slip out the front door, they head for the gate and the highway and they run down to Marty's house. And they always come back, strictly playing. But those 2 dogs don't bother anybody. And these people have moved a pig up directly on the back of my property. little pig, he's not even half grown. I'm not blaming the animal, that's not the point. The point is, why? He knows if my dogs see it, that my dogs think he's a toy, for crying out loud. So they're gonna bark. Dogs bark. He gets real angry about that. He comes out with a loaded .45. And he'll walk along my back chain link fence, firing that gun into the ground to intimidate or scare my dogs and stop them from barking. But yet he has 4 dogs loose in his house. So I'm like Mr. Marty said, I know the law can only go so far. We've got to have laws to enforce them. And I can't get upset with these guys because they do a fantastic job. But at the same time, there's got to be something somebody can do before somebody dies. And I am so scared of that. And I have to live there that way every day. I'm scared when I let my dogs out because I'll go and stand in a Florida room that is 3 walled glass windows that my husband built for me, so that I can watch that whole quarter acre to make sure there ain't nobody out there hurting those dogs, see what they're barking at. If they're barking up in the trees that backs on mine and Mr. Marty's property there, I don't worry about that. They're barking at squirrels, they bark at birds, and they will run along. If they see a buzzard flying around over there, they'll run all over that backyard wide open with their head in the air barking. That's their way of playing. That's not hurting nobody. But this person seems to think that his street in this life is to see how much damage he can properly do. Late yesterday afternoon and last night is a good option of what I'm talking about. I have several major medical issues that I have to deal with.
Ma'am,
And I have to deal with these every day.
we respectfully recognize what's going on here. And
Okay,
there's very limited on
glad
what
to
we
hear
can
it.
do, but we will take it under advisement. And if there's anything else we need to know specifically that hadn't already been covered, we could do
It's
that.
not-
But I think that everyone else is kind of nodding their heads that they've already gotten that, so we need to move on.
2 occasions last night. Like yesterday afternoon, my husband went out somewhere around 3:30, 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon
ma'am.
to the corner post on the southeast front corner of our property. That was just surveyed yesterday. He had put a really long steel pipe in the ground on the corner marker.
Did he move it?
No, he did not. He put this down over the stake, Mr.
Okay, let me stop you there. You're getting into a matter that is a civil matter, and that's where I was gonna suggest. I can't give you any legal advice, but there's not a
Okay.
criminal law that's been violated yet, according to the sheriff.
Okay,
Okay, there's not a ordinance that has been violated, and those would be quasi-criminal, they'd be criminal.
Mhm.
There's nothing that really deals with this. He's right there in that land. But the burden on a criminal law is much higher than what is a civil. This is a neighbor dispute.
Yeah.
And that's where it is at this point. And I understand you can see where it could go, but we don't, but the law doesn't deal with what could happen. It deals with where it is right now. My suggestion would be for anyone that comes up here that has a neighbor dispute is to A, determine who owns the property, which hasn't been done yet. Okay? We guessed. And B, seek out some legal counsel that
okay,
can assist you with the remedies that might be available to you and neighbors. And there may be something that you could do in that regard. And there's plenty of people around that can do that. In Cordele, Vienna, Perry, Americus, wherever. Okay?
okay,
And I see those types of things in the court system all the time on the
okay.
civil side. All right?
Okay, the only other thing I can add to it is there was physical contact last night at that
Let
corner
the sheriff's
post.
department know about that outside of this meeting. Okay?
And about 9:30 last night, he was in his father's pickup truck for the 2nd or 3rd time now, with his truck parked up along with the headlights on high beam aimed through my living room window last night at about 9:30. My husband about fell and broke his neck because I got up and went I just went on to bed at 8 o'clock last night. So the whole house was dark. There was nothing to
Let's
see.
go back to the two things. Let's determine the ownership, and let's get some legal advice for y'all's group that'll be your legal advice.
Okay,
All right?
all right,
That's what you're looking for.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, we ready to go to the next item on the agenda?
Yes.
That. Okay, DOT this has been on the agenda before, but DOT has identified 2 potential candidates, bridges for potential candidates for replacement. They're having a meeting today to sort of review them as potential candidates. And one of them is on Heath Road they call that Heath Road at South Prong Creek. And that's the location of it on Heath Road. This is in your district, so you're familiar with it. Okay. The other one is on Mount Vernon Road at Camp Creek, and this is going to be in Chairman Barron's district. That's the location of that. This is different. You're familiar with them. So I'm just saying, no, they're still being considered for replacement. So I'll keep y'all advised. It's they said DOT's having a meeting today discussing. I'm assuming they will let me know in the coming weeks if they're still in consideration or not. So, okay. Item number 16, received notice that State Senator Cardin Summers plans to introduce legislation at the 2025 Georgia General Assembly to call for a referendum to put the following question before the voters. Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for the operation and regulation of sports betting and casino gambling activities in the state? He's requesting a letter of support from all the counties and cities in his district. We are in his district, so I just got this information. Let me send y'all the full package of the information. But in it, it's kind of interesting. He's saying during the May primary earlier this year, for the Republican voters, there were some questions on the ballot, non-binding questions, but questions that the Republican Party put on the ballot. And one of them was, did they support such a referendum? And he's claiming that it was 81% in favor of the Republicans that replied to that question was in favor of it. So and if it was to get passed, his amendment as it's currently worded, he's saying the first $2 billion generated would be distributed evenly to all the counties in the state before the state got any money. And then after the first $2 billion then he's saying it would require that $500 million annually would be distributed to the counties. Of course, now this legislation hasn't been introduced yet, and if it does ever get introduced, it's probably going to be amended several times before, if it even gets passed. The question is right now, do y'all want to draft a letter of support? So let me send this to y'all. Y'all review it, and we'll bring it back up at the next meeting. I'm not asking for this decision today. I'm just giving y'all a heads up about it.
I thought they already had talked about this.
I think it's been discussed. It's been discussed many times.
Yeah.
Because there was a drawing of the Macon Mall. That was going to be one of the casinos. They were preparing for that to get pushed and go in Macon. Is the Hope Scholarship, is 100% of the lottery money still going to Hope, or have they diverted that money?
100%. I don't think it's 100% though.
I don't know.
It used to be.
Yeah, it used to be. I know when they first started 30 years ago.
Item number 17, we had talked about this earlier or I had mentioned y'all, DOT is considering constructing a roundabout at the intersection of State Route 215 and 257. Now they have sent something from us requesting that the county participate in the maintenance of this project by agreeing to provide the following. Basically, pay an electric bill for the lighting that's going to be out there and maintenance of the lighting system once the lighting system is installed out there. And then pay for the maintenance costs associated with landscaping out there. So
Where's it at?
this would be Highway 215 and 257.
But do we get what input do we get in on the lights and the landscape? No, I mean, I know, because I've gone through some roundabouts and they are exquisitely landscaped and maintained, and that would cost a ton of money.
It's what their engineer says, and by their design standards. So the question is, what are they already planning? And then can you back it off before it gets into? I mean, I think the time to have the input is now, if there's any to be had.
Can they just put rock and we spray Roundup? There's a difference in maintaining that.
I'll try to get somebody from DOT to come talk to
I
us
don't know
about
how you
this.
have landscaping to keep it up, and it looks like something if you have no water.
I don't want to be ugly. I don't want them to do it nice and then just let it go.
But you want to know what you're agreeing to do,
Water means well.
what you're committing to do, so.
Needs electricity.
Needs electricity.
And they're already, so they putting lighting in out there. They want to pay for it.
Evidently, that's because that's number one, they want us
Some
to.
roundabouts have nice exquisite lights and some just have street lights.
So we're gonna put a roundabout out there, but, and one of the reasons for the lighting is going to be because to alert the public of this new thing there, which is actually, is it gonna make it safer or not?
No, they light the roundabout.
Oh, I know, so that people can see it from far away. Whereas right now, there is no lighting, or is there just?
Yeah, it is. It's the
They got
stop
a
signs
Oh,
light up.
okay, forward.
But no
Light
overhead
up there. I
light,
don't know what that is.
not.
There's lighting at that intersection. There's,
I don't know.
If there is, who pays for it now? Why are they asking us to start paying for it?
Lighting's on the signs, the flashing lights, and it's solar.
but aren't there street lights at that intersection too?
I don't know.
I think having
I'm
somebody
aware
come
of
is a great idea. And ask
I want to
questions.
know about landscape.
But Steve, when they do that, can we do a roundabout a little too at the railroad track?
Turn people around the
They're
other
gonna
way.
do a $25 million overpass.
Well, we
You'd
need.
wipe out the whole town, but they'd have an overpass.
When you say that, there was an effort, but the city wasn't in favor.
It would take out
Yeah.
every building,
It would basically,
church.
I'd
Yeah.
rather see landscaping out here at the main exit when you're trying to draw people off the interstate.
all right, I'll see if I can get somebody from DOT to come.
You ever seen that Pogo comic strip that the town was called Bypass? Because they bypassed the town.
Just for information, upcoming county holidays, December 24th, Tuesday, December 24th is Christmas Eve, Wednesday, December 25th, Christmas Day, and then Wednesday, January 1, New Year's Day will be county holidays. Number 19, I spelled shell cracker wrong, I'm sorry. And this turns out not to really be an issue yet. It may become one, so I'm just going to give you a brief. This is yellow fly plantation in the general neighborhood of these folks down here, but they got nothing to do with them. But this is actually where we were just talking. This is where the Clemens live, Miss Espy lives, and Marty and Amy live right here. This is River Road, Campers Haven Road, and then this is the road to go into Yellowfly subdivision. And it comes all the way, the pavement stops right here. This is Highway 27. This is the Flint River, just sort of give everybody. And 20 years ago, I think maybe back in 2008, the county accepted somebody come and proposed to develop this subdivision. The county agreed to accept the right of way. The contractor paved the street. Did a real great job of paving. At that time, we didn't have a county engineer to oversee things, so we got what we got. But the pavement stopped right here. The right of way the county accepted goes all the way out to Highway 27. I do not remember why the pavement stopped here. I think one of the reasons was to tie this road into Highway 27. There was talk that DOT would require a decel lane out here, which was going to be very expensive. So that's why we stopped it right there. Well, now, evidently, whoever owns this, they are, and let me blow this up a little bit. A little bit, not too much, maybe. You can see from this aerial photograph, there's a little pig trail that folks have been, that you can ride in and out on 27 and just go across the ditch. There's not an official driveway there, but you could go in and out that way. Well, evidently the contractor, the developer, they built a new road through here, not all the way over here on this old road. It basically starts right here and goes through these lots and comes out at 27, somewhere right in there. They have got gravel on the road, still not an official driveway yet. So I'm pretty sure DOT is going to have something to say about that before long, but that's on private property. That ain't got anything to do with the county. When I was first told about it, I was led to believe they had extended it on out the county right away, which would bring the county but right now it's not a county issue. I'm just giving y'all a heads up that it may become an issue at some point in time.
Yeah, this is exactly the type of thing that you mentioned, county engineer and building standards. When you go to accept these things, that you don't let someone slip on something like that decel lane, because that's a state law. It's not going to change. And you're going to have continual problems because somebody wanted this to go in, right, wrong, or indifferent. But that's the reason you had it not been accepted or not been approved until they did that back then, based on the recommendation of a county engineer, we wouldn't be having discussions about the ifs, ands, or whatevers that are coming out.
But as somebody that, if I bought a lot in there, when you open it up to 27, you're inviting a whole bunch of pass-through traffic. That's not as a private of a neighborhood as it is now.
So anyway, just going to give y'all a heads up about that.
Mr. Steve, before we proceed, going back to Lily again, I just thought, sitting there thinking, can we get a sign when both of those trains are across the track there, to say detour on West Road, so that in case of emergency or whatever, somebody need to continue traveling, they can take that route and head on around back to Byronville and get on 90 and continue on. Then we contact the state and give some direction on that.
The city, since the place the sign would be placed was in the city, they would need to initiate that discussion with the DOT, and the sign would have to meet the DOT standards, and or the bypass would have to indicate that, because of certain levels of vehicles that would otherwise be relying on that. For instance, an 18-wheeler gas truck might not need to go on that detour, whereas my pickup truck could. And so they got to take all that into consideration. When they do like a truck route or a detour, there's certain standards. So I think I would let the city initiate that.
Well, we
can support it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, can we just at least initiate the conversation with them?
With the city, sure.
With the city of Lily.
I mean, I think that's something that anybody could do, and they need to bring it. Paula and her crew need to pass a resolution asking the DOTs, and they need to let us know and let us support it. Kind of like we did with the basketball court. It needs to start from the city, and then, since it's in the city limits, and then they ask us to support it, and then we get behind it. Be my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I got. Linda, you,
About t-shirts.
yes.
You want to discuss that? Okay. Y'all had inquired about some t-shirts. So I went to Joseph work with me as far as coming up with the t-shirt, and I think y'all said blue or gray. So we're gonna start out, I'd like to start out with a short sleeve, because you can always put a coat on with it. Whereas if you want with those long sleeve, that one will be for the winter time. So, excuse me,
Mine 24 cell.
long sleeve,
Yeah, I don't wear them short sleeve.
or you don't? Okay. Or whatever y'all want, that's just my suggestion, whatever you all want. So you want long sleeve?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll have short sleeve for everyone but the chairman.
If everybody's in agreement, whatever they want, I take instructions.
All right, we'll let them get with you after the meeting. Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, Chairman, that's all the official business.
All right, Mr. Tony.
No executive session today? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adjourn.
I second.
Thank y'all for coming.
Every motion and second, all in favor, please stand up and lift.
First one in the